Welcome to the Hustle Class Podcast. We have a quick disclaimer. All material presented within Hustle Class LLC is not investment advice, but for educational purposes only. Trading involves risk, and you are solely responsible for your investment decisions and assume the entire risk of any trading you choose to undertake. Owners of Hustle Class LLC and its representatives are not registered as security broker-dealers or investment advisors, either with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or with any state securities regulatory authority. Please utilize a registered investment or financial advisor to make any financial decisions. If you choose to invest without seeking advice from such an advisor or entity, then any consequences resulting from your investments are your sole responsibility. By utilizing Hustle Class LLC and our content, you are indicating your consent and agreement to our disclaimer. Welcome to Hustle Class Podcast. It is your boy Jermaine, and I am back at it again with another one. We are blessed to be here with you. We are blessed to receive the words that we're going to receive today. You know, we're excited. We're about to get it on. We're about to keep talking real estate. Thank you all for tuning in. I see y'all all across the world. Thank you for tuning in. Australia, UK, Canada, Africa. Let's go. I see all y'all out there supporting the podcast, and I really appreciate it. Great. So let's get this ball rolling. So today, what we're going to start with is, our song. And our song today is Mr. Midnight by Larry June. Right? Larry June is a really nice artist, gets into a lot of empowerment in his raps. So the bars go like this. It was days when I didn't have much, but I'm thankful because it made me humble. It was days when I didn't have much, but I'm thankful because it made me humble. I know a lot of us have been through a lot of tough times where we felt like we were just struggling to make ends meet, or we just didn't really have enough resources to really execute the way we wanted to, or we didn't have the knowledge base to really get ourselves out of tough situations, right? So we remember those days when we didn't have anything, when we were downtrodden, when we were down and out, when we were written off. And, we remember those days when we didn't have much, but we thankful. Why? It made us humble. It gave us a perspective of the struggle, right? It gave us that street smartness that we could use to elevate in corporate spaces or in business or entrepreneurial spaces, right? We kind of learned from the struggle, right? It groomed us. It made us who we are today, and there's beauty in that struggle. And the people that we went through it with are people who are going to be with us forever because they understand us like nobody else. Right? So we're thankful because it made us humble, right? Harboring on the past is not going to do us any good unless all we're taking from it is lessons. So we have to take those lessons with a grain of salt and we apply them to our lives, right? Humility, right? Humility and pride. Interesting concepts. One might call them paradoxes, right? But here we are. So I have the bars and I gave it to y'all. So y'all take that and y'all utilize it and keep it, right? So now we're about to get into our real estate talk, right? So last week we had a lot of great conversation. We really got into it in our real estate bag about, the process of getting started, looking for a crib, looking for a home, right? And like I said, the topic, though it's, seemingly big and it's, very American based because this is home buying within the context of the United States. I feel like it can be applied across the board. I know we have listeners from all over the world, but I know that this same knowledge can be applied because, it's probably going to be similar topics and similar processes in terms of actually getting yourself, home ownership. So just a recap of what we talked about, right? Last week we talked about, thinking about a home and can you actually afford one, right? And then what that kind of looks like. And so can you afford the home, right? We talked about the fact that you might need 10% down, right? Not 10% down on the home, but 10% as a working range for more than just your down payment, because you have a down payment, you have closing costs, and you have other fees. We talked about making sure your credit is good, right? Because your credit is going to be the difference between you getting a good rate and a bad rate, right? So you got to make sure your credit is great. Another thing that you have to think about is fixing your credit if it's not good. After that, like we said, you have to hit that 10%, right, that we discussed. So now how do we actually, make that goal of hitting that 10,000, that 10%, right? Where for a $300,000 home, that would be $30K. For a $400,000 home, that would be $40K. How do we make sure we have that money for that home, right? And so you're going to have to budget, you're going to have to save, you're going to have to liquidate some of your assets. You're going to have to do what it takes to make sure that you have that money ready for you to be able to get that home, right? And so we talked about that, saving and budgeting for it. And then we also talked about mortgages and like finding a lender that you can trust, so you can get that mortgage that you're looking for, right? So that was the part one, right? Now we're getting into part two, right? What to look for in a home. That's where we're gonna start it. So when you're looking for something, when you're looking for, good things in a home that's quality, right? You might think, oh, a place that looks cool on the inside, it looks cool on the outside, and I'm good to go. Like, as long as my home looks great and it's not too far from work or it's in an area that I like, cool, right? So let's get into it, right? One good thing to consider about a home is the neighborhood, right? We talked about where you might want the home to be, right? It's a cool place. It's a cool location, right? One good thing to look at when you're thinking about, the location and the neighborhood is how much crime is in that area, right? So you want to make sure you look at how much crime is in the area, because you don't want to have a situation where you're living in a place where you have to look over your shoulder, right? You probably want somewhere where you're going to be comfortable, where you're going to, be confident in being able to do your daily activities without, having, fear as a part of your daily routine, right? Distance to work is a good one, right? These days a lot of people work from home, so this might not be a factor for many, but distance to work is still pretty important because, you don't want to have, some people might want to have a long commute to work. Some people love being in the car listening to an audiobook or a podcast or the radio before they get to work. But some people might not want to make that hour-long drive. Some people might want to have a 5 to 15 minute drive to work. Some people might want to be able to just take a bus to work, right? So you might want your distance to work to be a considering factor in the home that you decide to go with, right? Schools. One thing about schools, right? People say, okay, like if you don't have any kids, it doesn't really matter about what the schools look like in the area. Cool. But some people are going to have schools one day. And sometimes the schools in the area can also be a big factor in the appreciation of your home. Why? If a lot of people are buying homes in your area because the school system there is just that excellent, that's going to drive the price up of your home and it's going to give you more equity. So looking at schools in the area is definitely important. Shopping, right? Shopping is another thing. You want to make sure that you're near some sort of grocery store, some sort of plaza or like a mall, so that you can have access to the things that you might need on a daily basis, right? Like groceries or even like getting clothes and stuff like that. I mean, it's cool to drive a distance to the mall, but if the mall is 15 to 20 minutes away, because of the location of the home, that's not bad. A mall or a shopping center or grocery stores are also a driving factor in people moving into that area. So it should also increase the the traffic that you would get if people were looking at moving and purchasing your home in that area, right? So it's also going to drive the price of your home up. Okay, and now, you also want to consider the sales price of the home, right? You want to make sure it's in budget. Like I said, we're talking about maybe having 10%, right, for the home. So, like I said, if you have like a $300,000 home, having $30,000 ready is probably ideal. $400,000 home, having $40,000 is ideal and ready. But, circumstances are going to be different for whatever the case is. So you want to make sure that the sales price reflects something that you can actually accomplish, because you would hate to have a situation where you can't afford your mortgage on a month to month, or to have a situation where you actually aren't able to close because you couldn't come up with as much money as it takes for the home to actually be bought once all the paperwork is done and they evaluate your finances, right? So you want to make sure that you're good on that front. And then you want to think about the size and the space of the home, right? Do you want 3 floors? Do you want bathrooms? How many bathrooms? Do you want a guest bathroom on the main floor that everybody's going to be on? Do you want, a patio? Do you want a deck or balcony? Do you want a fence around it? Like, how big do you want your home to be, right? How big do you want the outside to be? Do you want a yard? Do you want a large lot? Do you want parking spaces? Like, do you want a driveway? Like, these are so many different things that you have to consider when you're thinking about your home. And once you have these criteria, you can kind of figure out, okay, where exactly do I want to live, right? Because you'll be looking for a home with those traits. But having those traits set in stone already when you're looking at your home is very important, because it's going to kind of guide your process a little better, so you don't miss out on the home of your dreams, or you don't end up getting a home that you didn't really like, right? So that's good. condition of electrical, plumbing, and heating systems. This is very important, right? You want to make sure that the roof has been replaced recently, or it's not due for a while, or like you get that done. You want to make sure like your electricals are good, your plumbing is good, toilets are flushing the way they need to, the water pressures are good everywhere in the house. You want to make sure your house, the ventilation in there is good. You know, you don't want all that pollen and all that dust in your air duct systems. You want to make sure the heating system is good. You would hate to have a situation where you can't heat your house during the winter, right? So you want to make sure that's also good and squared away. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to looking at a home and what you want in that home, and also what you want about your home, which is like the area, you know, like we said, neighborhood, distance to work, schools, shopping centers, things of that nature. So, you know, there's a lot to kind of break down, but this should basically let you know, like, getting a home is not like, it's not a quick process. You know, it's not like, oh, I want to get a home, cop the crib. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, like, what am I really looking for? You know, what am I really looking for in this home? What's the purpose? You know, if you're trying to house hack, for example, one cool thing I saw with some of the homes is like, you know, there's a master bedroom with the bathrooms in it, but then you have situations where the bathrooms on the other floors are shared bathrooms between multiple rooms, right? So that's going to be cheaper than having bathrooms in each specific room, but you still get to, you know, have two separate rooms sharing one bathroom. It's kind of like, you know, you kill two birds with one stone. Instead of you having to get an extra bathroom in an extra bedroom, you can have a bathroom that's split between two rooms, right? But still have a master bedroom with its own bathroom, and that can reflect in the price, right? So if I'm trying to rent out that space, I might be able to rent the rooms in the middle for a lower price, but that master bedroom I could rent it for more. Why? Because the bathroom's included inside of it. So it's an extra incentive for somebody to actually, you know, want to live in your space, because they'll get the master option. But if they don't really need it, they can still do the other option. So it brings that flexibility. So that's something I was looking at in a home. But you know, you definitely should think about what you want in your home when it comes to you actually going about that process of trying to get one, right? Great. Now you're going to have to find a real estate agent, right? Now you can find a real estate agent by looking up the properties and reaching out to the real estate agents who posted the properties themselves. But, you know, I would always recommend kind of like always using the people you know. Somebody you know has a real estate agent who helped them recently, and you know they can give you the real spiel on, and good faith on, how that person actually works, and you know that person can have that relationship with you, so they're not going to do you dirty because they've helped somebody who referred them to you, right? So it's kind of like that family or that like camaraderie aspect of it, rather than choosing a random real estate agent, right? Have somebody who, you know, you can already have that innate trust with, or that you kind of trust, right? Because this is, you want to know everything about your process. You want to make sure everything goes smoothly. You want to make sure the person you're working with is, you know, is solid and is there for you and has your best interest at heart in all aspects of it, right? So you want to make sure you find a good real estate agent. You know, you can also go to open houses to find real estate agents. And if somebody has recently worked with an agent, but you might not like that agent, you can still contact their firm and see if they can find an agent that more fits what you're looking for. So yeah, the agent is going to help you, you know, to buy your home. They're going to work directly for you, the home buyer, and they're going to represent your interests. And then the seller of the home is also going to have their real estate agent. So basically, the two real estate agents are going to be communicating with each other to make sure the deal goes through, right? So that's good. You're going to make sure you have a real estate agent. And then you're also going to want to make sure that you have the real estate agent and you come up with a great offer for the home. Usually a lot of times homes end up having situations where multiple people are offering bids for the home. So what that looks like is, you know, I would say, okay, let's do hustle class A, hustle class B, and hustle class C. Hustle class A says, oh, I'll buy that home from you for like $350,000. The hustle class B says, I'll make it $360,000 and I'll make sure 50% of it is in cash. And then hustle class C might say, you know what, I'll make it $370,000 and it'll all be in cash, right? Instead of a, you know, like a loan from the bank. So these are all different ways that, you know, people try to like bid for homes that they're trying to close on and stuff like that. So with that being said, you know, you're going to probably have to make an offer on a home. Sometimes, right, in the world of like house hacking and like real estate as an investment, people can come to you with deals. where it's like, hey, like I'll sell you this home for this price below market if these things are in order. Or I'll sell you this home for this price if these things are in order. You also have wholesalers who can come up to you and say, hey, I have a deal on a home. You can do this and do that, and I'll make sure the deal goes through. And so there's different ways to make offers on homes, but some of the things that you want to make sure you consider once you figure out the home that you want is like, okay, like what are the taxes going to be? Because, you're going to have to pay property taxes and taxes on like the actual like purchase of the home. And you're also going to have to figure out like, other things that you might need once the home is bought, right? Because you're going to have to make an offer on a house at a reasonable price where you feel comfortable. But depending on whether the home is new or old, you might still have to have painting done or on the inside of the home and on the outside of the home. You might need to have the house cleaned. You might need to have the house, like the bathrooms and stuff, whitened a little bit, right? You might need to have some gardening work. You might need some plumbing. You might need some roofing. You might need some gutter work. You might need to clear out the air ducts, right, of dust, pollen, bugs, all of that. You might need the chimneys cleared, right? So there's a lot of other costs associated with the home that might not go into the actual price of the house. So you have to make sure that when you're making an offer for the home, you consider the state of the home so that you can also figure out the other costs that you might need to come up with money for that home. So, you have to make sure that you're looking at all of that. So, questions you want to ask yourself. How much can you afford? How badly do you want the house? How many other buyers are interested? Because that could raise the prices. Like I said, with multiple bidders, it might get competitive. People might be willing to pay more than the house is worth for it. How motivated do you think the seller is? How motivated do you think the person who's looking to sell the home is willing to give it to you under the circumstances that you want them on, right? How much work needs to be done in the house? We talked about that. How much work do we really need to get done after we buy the house? And you also want to make sure you're comparing, right? There's something called comps. You want to make sure that you're comparing the price that you're buying the home to the prices of the other homes in the area. Because the last thing you want to do is really overpay for the home. Because if you overpay for the home, that means if you do want to sell one day, people know that they can get the same home that you have for cheaper 3 or 4 doors down, five doors down. And if your house isn't remarkably that different than the other home, it might not be an opportunity where people would look to buy yours because they just feel like it's outpriced. It's not priced right? So you want to make sure that you're comparing the property to the other ones in the area and that you really are paying a good price for what you're getting and you're not overpaying. Or you're not buying a home that's beyond repair, right? And like, how come all the homes in this area are $340,000, but you're selling it to me for $300,000? Like, what is really wrong with this house, right? Stuff like that. So you want to make sure that it's priced right. It's priced accurately, basically, right? So that's something that we're gonna think about. And then you want to make sure that when you're actually gonna make the offer on the home, you do things like getting a comparison or getting an appraisal. An appraisal is where somebody comes in and actually assesses the value of the home based on the other prices of the homes, right, in the area. Appraisals can roughly be anywhere between like $300 and $800. So, you could find somebody to get you an appraisal, an appraisal expert. You could ask your loan officer or your real estate agent. They could probably find you somebody to get you an appraisal and they can make that happen. And then you might also want to get a home inspection, right, for the home, just to make sure it's exactly what you want. You might want the termite inspection, for the bugs. There's a lot of things that you might want to do. And, you're also going to have to make sure that you have an earnest money deposit ready for the home. That's going to be about 1% of the home's value, I think, is what you're going to need for the earnest money deposit. And the earnest money deposit is also known as a good faith check, which is basically you saying that you're serious about your offer for the home. And if you end up not getting the home, that money is going to be returned to you with none of it taken out. So, but that's just kind of like hey, I really do like this home and I really am trying to move forward with purchasing it. So you'll do that. And if things are competitive, you might need to actually have counter offers. That's something to consider. You might actually need that to happen. Right. So, that's kind of a lot of the stuff that you're going to be dealing with when it comes to the home. And then you're going to want to make sure that we talked already about the different types of mortgages, right? So you're going to have, there's VA, which is offered for, U.S. Armed Forces and veterans. So there's the VA loan, which is really good for them. If you do happen to be armed forces or a veteran, please definitely get a VA loan if you want to get a mortgage. And then we have the FHA loan, which is going to be less than 10% down. And you're probably going to have over 15 years as your target for your mortgage. And then there's going to be like more like private loans, more like the conventional type of ones, which you'll probably need more money down, more than 10%. But there are conventional loans where they can make it so that you have to have less money down, basically. So you can still get a great interest rate with not as much money down, right? So yeah, and we already talked about that last week, so we don't even have to do that. But with the mortgage, you're going to need to get pre-approved, and then you're going to need to get your credit ran and actually, get an approval. And so that's going to be that. And, the process can kind of get convoluted, right? Because let's assess everything we've talked about right now. So you're going to start out looking for your home. You're going to get a loan officer who's going to pre-approve you for a home that you're looking at and the price you're looking at it for. He's going to pre-approve you to see if you can actually afford homes in that price range, right? Once you get that pre-approval, then you kind of know what you're looking at. Now you're going to start assessing what you want out of a home. Like we said, the school, the area, the actual perks of the home, how much work the home might need, the area that the home is in, the year the home was made, the roofing of the home when it was replaced, whether it uses gas, electric, all that type of stuff. Once you kind of look into that, you're going to reach out to a real estate agent. You're going to tell the real estate agent what you want, right? Once you tell the real estate agent what you want, then you're going to kind of be able to get a picture with them of, okay, what's out in the market that matches what you want. Now the real estate agent can actually follow leads and figure out, okay, based on what, Jermaine said he wants, how do I make this happen? And I'm still looking at my end too, so now I have double the research. The real estate agent and I come up with something cool. We reach out to the seller. The seller says, oh, yeah, we could do this. I'm down to do this deal. We assess how many offers there are to see if we have to do anything to make our offer more competitive as one that the seller might take. And then once we figure out we can do the deal, it's like, okay, we can do it. Now we go back to the loan officer. The loan officer drafts up, what kind of the numbers are going to be as an estimate for if things go through. The real estate agent is going to come up with the contract, and then we're going to have the contracts for both parties. Then we're going to get the contract to the loan officer so the loan officer can process the loan that we're going to use to actually purchase the home. And then after that, we're going to involve the title company. You're going to have to get mortgage insurance. You're going to have to get home insurance. You're going to have conversations with the homeowners association for the neighborhood you're moving to. And then these are all things that are going to be pending after, your contract is done and everything is getting, leading up to closing. Because closing is going to be that day where you actually sign all your documents and transfer ownership of the home over from the seller to you, the buyer. And so it's a lot, right? It's a lot that we've kind of gone through today, but that is getting a home in a nutshell. So, it's a long process, like I said, and it leads all the way to closing from the moment where you're actually looking for the home. And it gets way more complicated than what I've discussed in this, but this should give you a big picture of everything that kind of goes into getting a home. Now, when you're getting a home, you can get a home that needs to be, a fixer-upper, or you can get a home that's brand new. Whatever floats your boat is fine. But like I said, the most important thing is making sure that you can actually afford the home you're buying. You want to make sure you're making the mortgage payments on time. There's a hack where basically if you make your mortgage payments, right, every month you pay your principal and your interest. If you send an extra check for just the principal every month, you can cut your 30-year term fixed rate mortgage to 15-year, right? So you can literally cut from 30 years to 15 years if you just pay the extra principal every single month, and make sure that when you write the check or you pay it to your lender or whoever they hand off your mortgage to collect your money, you make sure that you let them know that that extra money you're sending is going specifically to principal and no interest. And, basically every time you pay off that principal, right, every month, that's principal that you don't have to gain interest or accrue interest on, right? Because that principal is basically vanished because you paid it. Cool, right? But interest is something that just keeps compounding and keeps multiplying over time. I know it's annoying. It's annoying when it's working the other way, right, as taxing to you. But when it comes to you actually using interest in your benefit, it's a whole different story. And then once you are done closing on the home, like I said, if you have like an older home, and you closed on it, you might need to do some extra work, right? For example, I know a guy who closed on a home, and the people who were in it were looking for a deal, right? So they ended up saying, okay, we want this deal, we want to get out of the home, so basically we're going to sell you the home, but when we sell you the home, we don't want to do any work on the home, and we'll give you extra money for you to paint the home, but that's all we're going to do. So we'll sell it to you at a discount, and we'll give you money to paint it, but literally all we're going to do is just move out. Like, you just take the home. Like, we don't want to do any of the work on it ourselves. We don't want to do any of the maintenance on the home. We don't want to do anything on the yard. We don't want to fix the roof. We don't want to do anything. We want to give you this home, give you money to do the painting, and just leave. And then my friend was like, oh, all right, I'll do it. I'll take the deal, because, he loves a deal. So he took the deal, right? And basically what ended up happening was he got a deal on the home, cool, but now he had to spend money to paint the whole inside. He had to spend money to clean the whole home. He had to spend money to do gardening work, to make sure the garden was good. He had to get the carpet replaced in the home, right? Because the carpet was a little old. He had to get the chimneys cleaned out. He had to get the air duct cleaned out. So he had so much to do in the home. If you ask me, he might have, with everything that, he was saying that he had to do, if I'm an estimating person, he might have spent an extra $8,000 to $10,000 on the home, right? An extra 8 to 10. And that might be an exaggeration, right? It might have been way less. I don't know how he bargained with the people who was doing the work, but I would say maybe like an extra $8,000, $10,000 just to be safe. So if we're talking already about 10% on the home, right? 10% as in like closing the home, doing this and doing that, we might have to ramp that up to 13%, because it looks like, you might need an extra $10,000 to do extra work afterwards, right? So for somebody buying an old home that might need work, they might need to have 12% ready or 13% ready to get the home, right? As opposed to somebody who's buying a new, fresh off the lot home, who might only need that, 10% or 9% that we were discussing. And then, once the loan officer, the mortgage officer, gives you the real number of what you need at closing, then you can sort of like see where you actually stand when it comes to how much money you actually need, and how much more money you're gonna have to save from work, or whatever the case may be, how much assets you have to liquidate to be able to make that amount. But I would say 10% is a safe ballpark for a new home, and then a home that needs a little bit of work, because what I said a second ago was no real structural work, right? It was all kind of like inside maintenance, like painting, carpet, like little stuff like that. That was like an extra, like I said, like 8 to 10 grand, right? So when you're looking at all these prices and all these numbers, something to think about as well is, okay, if this is what it takes for me to get a used home, if I have to spend extra money, maybe I can get a new, like, let me balance the books. For example, if I can get a $300,000 home that needs all this extra work, right, that I'm going to have to pay for out of pocket outside of the actual home buying process, right? Because the person who's going to sign off the title of the home to me is going to be like, good riddance, and I'm going to have all that work to do on myself for home maintenance. Let's say on a $300,000 property, right? Somebody else might say, oh, well, I might just spend more money for, spend $400,000 on a new home and just not have to do any work for it. And ultimately, it might balance out to the same amount. It might be $40,000 for a $300,000 fixer-upper, or $30,000, or $40,000 for just like a $400,000 new home. So you can do your own cost analysis on, okay, is it better for me to buy a home and put the work in myself, or is it better for me to just buy a home that's already new and already done, right? The case might be for you to buy a home that's already new and already done because you want all the extra costs associated with fixing the home to be a part of your mortgage. But some people who might be cash heavy might be like, oh, I can get a cheaper home. The mortgage won't hurt me that bad. And I can use the extra money that I have saved on the side just to fix everything I need to fix. So it's a balancing act. And honestly, it's one of those things where it's going to be preference based. Like, some people are going to want a new home. Some people are going to want something that they can get a deal on and they can just fix up. So it's going to depend. But yeah, this is Home Buying 101 in a nutshell. There was the part one, there was a part two. I hope that it was very informative. I know I ran through a lot and I talked really fast, but I just had a whole lot of information that I wanted to get to you all. So, if you have to slow down the audio, you could definitely do that on, Apple, Spotify, all different platforms. You could slow down the audio. And if I wasn't talking fast enough, you can also speed it up. So please feel free to do whatever it is that you need to do. So that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say. When it comes to the stock market, I know last episode I talked about how September and October were very difficult months in the market, and it proved so. The S&P 500 dropped, I think it was anywhere between 8 to 11%. And it actually hit that when it dropped down to that 8 to 11%, it hit that 8 to 11%, then it came back up and it went back down to 8 to 11, then it came back up and it went back down to 8 to 11 on 3 or 4 different occasions within October. So that gives you a perspective. Like I said, this would have been the moment for you to figure out your entry points and for you to get really good entries on places to buy your stocks if you try to get into the stock market. And then, if I check, the S&P 500 right now, right, almost 24 days into October, almost into November, we're back at all-time highs, right? So September and October were bad months, and now November is about to be all-time high. You see how crazy the stock market is? And this is why you have to understand and research it in order to get into it. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why everybody's 401ks and retirements are tied to this market. There's a reason why when the housing market crashed, so did the stock market. Like the stock market is like the heartbeat almost of a capitalistic society. It's almost the heartbeat of the economy of a capitalistic society. So just keep that in mind, right? I know people are going to say, oh, but what about jobs? Oh, what about inflation? Oh, what about the banks? Okay, I hear you. But the stock market is truly the heartbeat. So, definitely you should use that you should use a good understanding of it to get your entries, and you should get into good companies that give you good returns. Please don't get in any FOMO. Please don't get in any nonsense. You got to make sure that you get into good plays. And, even using the word play sometimes is a little outdated, because if you say somebody get into a play, kind of sounds like they're treating this as a game. I mean, this is more than a game. This is wealth. This is freedom. We're in it not as a game. We're in it because we really want that that FU money, that ability to be able to take care of our loved ones and to be able to do what we want with our time, right? Because what the wealthy acquire actually is time. Money is a means to an end, right? So we got to treat it that way. Thank you all for listening to the Hustle Class podcast. It has been another great episode. If you have any feedback, please email hustleclass@gmail.com. My apologies. All right. I love y'all. Shout out to everybody from all across the world, and we'll be back. See ya.